Hello, welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Thank you so much for coming in, Chris. Thanks everybody that's in here. I appreciate y'all. Child Abuse Prevention Month. This is what April is. What is the Polaris Project? So we'll go over that. And I would recommend everyone that's involved that wants to be involved in human trafficking, trying to rescue, trying to know more about it, to follow up with this, at least get the study, even if you're with another organization, because this gives a lot of insight on and classes on this happening. Let me share my screen. Sorry about that. And I will go ahead and say I need to do the banners right quick. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Facebook, stop banning my videos. Okay? Stop banning them, okay? Appreciate that. Let's get the word out. This is educational. Stop stopping my videos. Thank you. In Matthew 18, verse 6, but whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Let's get, and we can get with the other screen now. So right here, when you go to PolarisProject.org, there's also a Create a Pathway for Survivors Federal Criminal Records Relief. Survivors should not have to carry the burden of criminal records stemming from their exploitation. Support the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act. I'll show you how it looks when I click on it, but I'll be back. See here. Let's support Survivors Relief Act. Here we go right here. It says a bipartisan effort to bring relief to victims and survivors of human trafficking. This bill has the potential to make a significant positive impact on the lives and health of human trafficking survivors by providing resources to expunge their criminal records for crimes committed while they were in their situations of trafficking, meaning that they were forced into. Additionally, this bill includes other benefits like expanded offenses eligible for citizen reduction by making it easier for survivors to show proof of their trafficking situations. Passing this bill is a crucial step forward for victims and survivors and will help them clear their records and offer them an opportunity to start anew. By contacting your members of Congress today, you can help make a difference and support survivors on their journeys to freedom. First, call or make an appointment with your Congress members and tell them to support the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act. You can find their phone number here, which if you go in there, like I said, PolarisProject.org, it should be right at the front. And see, when I click on here, you can also fill out this form to send an email to your representative and senators, okay? When I click on the here, this is find your members. So that's where that goes in there. I appreciate it. So we come on down here. 28 million people are trafficked worldwide. We cannot end this one person, one survivor at a time. But with your help, We can target the systems that make human trafficking possible. Human trafficking, this is a myth right here, okay? Human trafficking is always or usually a violent crime. Learn more. The most pervasive myth about human trafficking is that it often involves kidnapping or physically forcing someone into a situation. In reality, most traffickers use psychological means such as tricking, defrauding, manipulating, or threatening victims into providing commercial sex or exploitative labor. All human trafficking involves commercial sex. This is a myth, okay? The reality is human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to get another person to provide labor or commercial sex. Worldwide, experts believe there are more situations of labor trafficking than of sex trafficking, but there is much wider awareness of sex trafficking in the U.S. than of labor trafficking. Here's a myth: traffickers target victims they don't know. Many survivors have been trafficked by romantic partners, including spouses, by family members, including parents. Hold on a second right here. I got to mute my. Okay, somebody needed something right quick. I hope that everybody's doing good. I'm sorry about that. So go ahead and close this other one out here. That's really showing the screen. So right here is where I looked it up, and so you could go to Polaris Project. You could either click on the human trafficking, take actions, careers, about us, Polaris, research and intelligence, contact, how to help, resources and reports, policy and legislation, partnerships, myths, facts, and statistics, Human Trafficking Act of 101 Polaris. That's right here is a study thing, which I am on module number 4. I done wrote the hints and tips for the study. The very first module was this is just helping get people aware and bring awareness into taking the classes. The first one, module 1, is defining human trafficking. Okay. Module 2 is how human trafficking happens. I took notes, sorry. Module 3 is understanding the victims. This module 4 is where I'm at now, and it's how traffickers operate. So I'm taking notes as we go along, as I said. Here's the human trafficking, and see the number at the bottom of the page. It says, need help? Polaris operates U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline. Call 1-888-373-7888. Text Be Free at 233-733. And also, if you go to Polaris.org, there's also this live chat, which y'all should see right here. See? So without further ado, let's go on further down this page right here. Human trafficking. Human trafficking is a business of stealing freedom for profit. In some cases, traffickers trick, defraud, or physically force victims into selling sex. In others, victims are lied to, assaulted, threatened, or manipulated into working under inhumane, illegal, or otherwise unacceptable conditions. It is a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that denies freedom to 24.9 million people around the world. The sex trafficking is a crime of using force, fraud, or coercion to induce another individual to sell sex. Common types include escort services, pornography, illicit massage businesses, brothels, and outdoor solicitation. We'll go right here, click on that to learn more. Recognizing sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is not something you can see happening across a crowded room. It is not a crime that occurs in an instant like kidnapping or carjacking that a bystander can witness and report. In fact, many people in active sex trafficking situations do not recognize themselves as being victims because they have been expertly groomed by a trafficker to believe they had chosen to participate in commercial sex. Well, me, when they traffic me, I believe that they use that MK Ultra. That's why my memory is spotty. Understanding how sex trafficking really works can help families and communities to recognize vulnerable people before they become victims and provide survivors with the support they need to break free, heal, and move on with their lives. Here's a myth right here. Only women and girls can be victims and survivors of sex trafficking. Reality: men and boys are also victimized by sex traffickers. LGBTQ boys and young men are seen as particularly vulnerable to trafficking. It can be straight guys as well too. I had one friend at Facebook. I unfriended him because here I was going to tell his story on my blog talk radio, and he said that he was trafficked by a girlfriend. But it was different than that when you went to hear his story. They were both working as prostitutes before, and then they decided that they would move in together and continue selling themselves. But he was going to get the money for himself, and she was going to get the money for herself, in which she ended up taking his money. So he said that he was um, trafficked by her, but he was wanting to do it and get the money. But they were a couple as well, so it's a complex situation. He chose to do whatever, and he was a grown man. Myth: all commercial sex is human trafficking. All commercial sex involving a minor is legally considered human trafficking. Commercial sex involving an adult is human trafficking if the person providing commercial sex is doing so against his or her will as a result of force, fraud, or coercion. Here's another myth: people in active trafficking situations always want help getting out. Every trafficking situation is unique, and self identification as a trafficking victim or survivor happens among a continuum. Fear, isolation, guilt, shame, misplaced loyalty, and expert manipulation are among the many factors that may keep a person from seeking help or identifying as a victim, even if they are, in fact, being actively trafficked. A lot of times we kind of like blame ourselves as well. So here are common sex trafficking red flags. They want to stop participating in selling or trading sex but feel scared or unable to leave. They disclosed that they were reluctant to engage in selling sex, but that someone pressured them into it. They live where they work or are transported by guards between home and workplace. There are children who live with or are supported by or dependent on a family member with a substance abuse problem or who is abusive in other ways. They have a pimp or manager in the sex trade. Can y'all hear me okay? Somebody's trying to call me, but I'm busy. Can y'all hear me okay? Please put a one. They work in an industry where it may be common to be pressured into performing sex acts for money, such as strip club, illicit cantinas, go-go bar, or illicit massage businesses. You can, thank you. They have an odor or simply controlling parent, guardian, romantic partner, or sponsor who would not allow you to meet or speak with the person alone or monitors their movements, spinning, and or communication. Like with my parents, y'all know my story. We got in trouble if we talked to somebody at school a lot of times. We got in trouble, we had to be very evasive towards people. If we got caught talking to somebody at school, we got beaten and different things like that. It was very controlled. Sex trafficking examples. Real, real sex trafficking situations that we hear about most frequently in the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline to help you to understand and recognize possible sex trafficking in your own life. Below are examples. I need to turn off this lamp right here. It's kind of okay. Below are examples of the kinds of sex trafficking situations that we hear about most frequently on the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline. Wow, the phone calls. They are by no means the only ways that sex trafficking can occur, but taken together, they help you craft your own stories in ways that are really realistic and impactful. That was my publisher, and I missed his call, but I try to call him back. Okay. Understanding what happened to you as trafficking is really important part of healing. But it took me 10 years to realize, hey, wow, I was trafficked because my situation was so different from what I had seen represented as trafficking. They try to say that, like with me, they're trying to say I was prostitution, child prostitute. No, I didn't prostitute myself. I was trafficked. My own parents would take me and sell me since I was 2 years old. They already had me groomed before I was 2 years old. As y'all knew that they put me on a kitchen table the very first time that I remembered. They sold me when I was two, when that military buddy had paid my dad and my mom. So Romeo pimps or boyfriending, recruitment and grooming. A man and a woman meet briefly at a party, and afterwards he follows her on social media. He contacts her after she posts about a breakup with the baby's father. He has everything she ever dreamed of. A great listener, very supportive. He showers her with gifts. She is deeply in love and believes she has found the person she has built her family with. She will build a family with, sorry. One night, he takes her to a party and he tells her to be nice to his friends, to earn jewelry. He makes it seem like it's no big deal at first, so she does it. But then it becomes more frequent. Like recently, I had that one dude at a dating site, and he was telling me that I would have to go to a bar wearing skimpy clothes. So this dude, it's kind of scary. I guess he know me from the past because he actually said it's amazing. I've always been um, really surprised, and I really like everything that you can do. Like, how does this guy know what all took place? I mean, how would he know? So, coercion and control. He keeps all the money she earns and tells her he is saving for them to buy a house. Sometimes he hits her to help her to understand how much he needs her to contribute. He says he will stop loving her and she will be alone if she keeps making trouble. Exit. After he blackens her eye, she packs up a go bag, calls a friend, and escapes when her trapper is out of the house. That is a good example. Here is familial trafficking, recruitment, and grooming. Mom is a survivor of rape and abuse who has been a prostitute for many years. In her community, there are few options for young people, and she is already struggling to support her children. When men start expressing interest in one of her kids, she tells her it's time to contribute to the household and takes her out on the streets. Coercion and control. The child loves her mother and has no other means of support. Exit. A teacher notices the child is tired all the time and appears frightened and asks if she needs support. The child confides in her, and a social service team comes together to work at a safety place for her to stay. There's child trafficking, recruitment, and grooming. A parent sexually abuses a child himself and offers a child to others for sexual gratification in exchange for access to other young children. Coercion and control. The child has been taught that this kind of activity is normal for parents and children and warned not to tell anyone or they will be hurt. Note, coercion or control is not legally required for this to be considered trafficking because the victim is a minor. Exit. An ER doctor notices signs of sexual trauma and alerts Child Protective Services to check on the family after the visit. Look at these sad kids, look at that. Online trolling. Welcome back. Recruitment and grooming. A lonely, insecure teen dreams of a modeling career and frequently posts pictures of herself striking a pose. She is contacted by someone who claims to be a modeling agent and sends her a plane ticket to come to his studio. When she arrives, he takes her out on the town and tells her she has to be nice to some people in the business to get contracts and sends her out to prostitute. Coercion and control. She is far from home, didn't tell her parents she was leaving, has no money, and is ashamed. He tells her she is making a good impression and that it would just take a little longer for her hard work to turn into modeling jobs. Exit. Eventually, the child contacts a friend who tells her family where she is and she is extracted from the situation. Gotta be careful about that too, because sometimes the traffickers would try to find the child again. Survival, sex. Recruitment and grooming. A teen who identifies as queer runs away from home in a small Texas town when his stepfather beats him up for his sexual identity. He camps out in a bus station and meets other runaways who tell him about someone they know in Houston who will probably let him stay at his house for a price. Coercion and control. The person who owns the house is very straightforward about the arrangement. The teen can stay there as long as they provide sex to the homeowner and occasionally other friends. The teen does not have any other options for housing and is also seeking a community which he hopes to find for the homeowner. Exit. The teen meets other young people who have run away. They connect him with a supportive shelter situation and he returns to school. Exploitation of addiction. Recruitment and grooming. A trafficker hangs outside the municipal courthouse, chatting up people as they come out of drug court. When they are busted for use charges, he offers them drugs for free and slowly feeds their addiction. Soon, in order to access drugs, the trafficker tells them that they have to engage in sex acts for money. Coercion and control. Whenever the victim begins to talk about getting clean and getting out of prostitution, stripping, or porn, the trafficker gives them more drugs and builds their dependency. He also warns that he will report their drug use to their probation officer if they leave. Exit. The victim contacts the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which helps them find a space in a drug rehab facility. Here's where people have been exploited who are disabled. Recruitment and grooming. A young adult with a developmental disability and limited family support is placed in a group living facility. Excuse me. Coercion and control. At the home, residents are told that sex with strangers is part of what they are expected to do to earn their meals and their rent. Exit. After many complaints from family members or other residents who have left the home, it is finally shut down and the residents are sent to other safe facilities. And here's where gangs are involved. Recruitment and grooming. A young woman grows up in a neighborhood where gangs control most of the commercial activity and the streets. She joins them for protection and a sense of belonging, and because there are few other options available. The gang tells her she has to engage in prostitution and gives them the proceeds to help them pay a drug debt they owe to a rival gang. Coercion and control. If she leads a gang, her family, their home, and their business will be targeted for violence. Exit. When the gang is targeted in a police raid involving drugs, she is swept up by a trauma informed police officer who understands the situation and connects her with appropriate supports. Here is CEO Pippin. Recruitment and grooming. A young woman who grew up in foster care ages out and is left without a place to live or guidance for her future. She meets a man at her job at a gas station who tells her he has connections in the entertainment industry and she should come dance at his strip club where she will meet producers who might need an assistant. After a few weeks, he tells her the reason she isn't getting noticed as she does not perform sex acts in the club's back room after her shifts ends. Coercion and control. When she doesn't comply, he threatens to fire and blackball her from any other clubs or music venues in the city. He also makes veiled threats about hurting her and her young child. Exit. She stays until she is able to save enough money to quit and begins community college. To sign up to learn more about how you can help. Okay, so we're going. So let's go to Miss Facts and Statistics and see if there's anything there. Who is vulnerable? Now let's go ahead. Who is the most vulnerable? It can happen to anyone, and it's happening in your backyard. Are common in the anti human trafficking field. Technically, they are true. Anyone can be trafficked in any community, just as anyone can be the victim of any kind of crime. But the real story is that while it can happen to anyone available, evidence suggests that people of color and LGBTQ plus people are more likely to be trafficked than any other demographic groups. That's not a coincidence. Generational trauma, historic oppression, discrimination, and other societal factors and inequities create community wide vulnerabilities. Traffickers recognize and take advantage of people who are vulnerable in certain ways. It said that human trafficking does not happen in a vacuum. As we enter into 2021, our country is facing multiple unprecedented crises: global health pandemic, staggering unemployment rates, systemic racial and economic inequities, and a growing mistrust in public institutions. Evidently, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Polaris and United Way are reflecting on how these compounding crises are having a profound impact on human trafficking across the United States. What we have long understood, but we are seeing now more clearly than ever, is that human trafficking doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is the end result of a range of other persistent injustices and iniquities in our society and our economy. Data shows that the vast majority of trafficking victims identified in the United States are people who have historically faced discrimination and its political, social, and economic consequences. People of color, indigenous communities, immigrants, and other people who identify as LGBTQ plus are disproportionately victimized. People living in poverty, foster care. That's what I'm saying. Foster care people. It's always. That's another thing. That's when y'all heard me talking to Charles Rogers. Okay, he said that two of the boys that him and Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington tried to save from Bentley Farms. The foster care workers, ended up letting Bentley Farms have these two boys, even though they were in two different homes, different locations. They were in foster care. They were trafficked over there at Bentley Farms. And then henceforth, they were shot and murdered. Are struggling with addiction, trauma, abuse, or unstable housing, or all at sorry, getting tongue tied after saying what I did, are all at comparatively higher risk of trafficking. What ties all these disparate groups of people and experiences together is that there's something they need, something desperately. Survivors have taught us that traffickers expertly seek out people whose specific need they can feel or pretend to feel. Sometimes they dangle material support, a good job, a good place, safe place to stay, drugs. Often, what they offer is less tangible, but just as vital: the illusion of love, belonging, safety, or acceptance. Preventing human trafficking at the scale of the problem means changing the underlying systems, the inequities and injustices we mentioned above that make people vulnerable and therefore make trafficking possible. It requires moving beyond solutions that rely entirely on law enforcement. Prosecuting traffickers and seeking justice for survivors is vital, but it's not enough in and of itself to end trafficking. The laws and the systems that need changing are not necessarily related to criminal justice. They are not necessarily specific to trafficking. They are eviction moratoria, that keeps people from being thrown out of their homes in the midst of a pandemic and the ensuing economic upheaval. There are changes to the foster care system to better protect youth who are aging out. Hey there, Cash. Good to see you. Hope never see the light. Increased abuse to a level we will not know for years. Right. COVID was for the vulnerable of all ages. You're right. Hi, Cash. Hope never to see the lights again. Increased abuse to a level we would not know for years. That's right, Cash. The scale of very dark time. The priorities need to be changed. No vulnerable should be hurt. That include that includes not just children. That's right. There are sick people, and you need to protect them. Exactly. So they are changes to the foster care system to better protect youth who are aging out, and to the immigration system so people are not so easily controlled by threats and deportation. They are public procurement rules to ensure taxpayer funds for landscaping and construction do not contribute to forced labor, and they are systems that ensure everyone can earn a living wage, a real living wage. We are also must never forget the important work of ensuring survivors can find safety and the supports and opportunities they deserve to rebuild their lives. Sometimes, it's going to take reteaching them, or depends on when they got into the system. They might not have had any kind of education, which is learning to read, learning to write, learning math. They might not have the basic fundamentals. So you just got to have patience with them. This work is nowhere near done and must continue to be prioritized with survivors of the helm. I liked what aged out angels do. They actually, when people will age out of foster care, they help provide learning tools. They help them learn how to balance a checkbook and that kind of stuff. And I think people that's going to be working with a human trafficking and stuff, we need to learn that. That's what we got to need to do too. We got to have to teach them and supply the needs that they need, which is some education too. For more than a decade, Polaris has operated the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline. That work has allowed us to build the largest known data set of trafficking in the United States. What we have learned from the data and from survivors informs our 10-day strategy, which is aimed at dismantling, repairing, and in some cases, appending the systems where we think the biggest change can be made to help the greater number. We're working to leverage the reach and power of financial systems to disrupt trafficking, build power for migrant workers and the system of recruiting workers for U.S. farms, and expanding the services available to vulnerable people to prevent sex trafficking before it happens. I think everybody needs to go and really keep a watch on all these communities so that we try to make sure don't just depend that the people are going to do that and not going to traffic. You really need to keep a bigger watch on the people. For more than 125 years, United Way has evolved to meet the needs of the times. United Way advances the common good in communities across the world. Our credo is to fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. The Center on Human Trafficking and Slavery does this by strengthening and expanding programs and services that support and protect our most vulnerable populations. So this is why January, Polaris and United Way are joining forces for fighting racism, fighting human trafficking, upholding LGBTQ equality, providing safe and affordable housing, and fighting human trafficking, protecting workers' rights, and fighting human trafficking. So let's go on back up here right quick. So let me go backwards, or so let's see. Our work. Here's our impact. Look at these numbers right here. The 100,000 plus trafficking situations have been identified. 197,000 victims identified. 55,600 plus people completed human trafficking 101 training. As described in theory, a change, Polaris is working toward our North Star of a more just and equitable society where no one is trafficked. The programmatic results, direct response. Since launching the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline in 2007, Polaris has handled 400,000 plus contacts. identified 100,000 plus trafficking situations, and identified 197,000 victims across all 50 states, U.S. territories, and 179 countries. In 2023, we created the Polaris Resilience Fund, a basic income pilot for survivors. This monthly cash assistance helps them gain economic stability, affording them time to heal, reducing vulnerability to re-trafficking, and enabling them to address barriers to thriving, such as criminal records or poor credit from their trafficking experience. The partners and communities are activated. Survivors help lead Polaris and our programs. While we never ask people to disclose whether they have experienced human trafficking directly, we are proud that there are survivors on the board of directors among our senior leadership team across levels of the organization and our advisory council. So when you go like this, there's even more stuff right here. I want to go back over here for a second. Show this. Let me get. I think it's over here. Here's where you go on down at the PolarisProject.org. I showed you that a little bit ago. There's that donate, who we are, your impact, national survivor story, increased funding for worker protection, human trafficking training. This is where I was getting at. So you go to PolarisProject.org. Here's where you learn more. It says compassionate, committed individuals take that care of the most powerful resource there is to prevent and reduce human trafficking. However, to leverage this power, we must ensure we are armed with the knowledge necessary to do the work. It says learn more, okay? So it said compassionate, committed individuals and communities like yours are the most powerful resource there is to prevent and reduce human trafficking. But to leverage your power, you need the best possible information. Take our free introductory course, Human Trafficking 101, to learn what human trafficking really is, how it happens, and how you can be part of the solutions. To get trained. So, part one, what I did is defining. Let me go up here. Let me read. It's about this first. Training modules. Polaris' interactive online training program includes 6 short modules, as well as survivor stories and quizzes designed to deepen your understanding of the issue. Number one, defining human trafficking. This module provides legal definitions and breaks down what human trafficking is and isn't. Module 2 talks about how human trafficking happens, explaining some of the most common ways that human trafficking happens in the United States. Number 3, understanding the victims, delving into who human trafficking victims are and the factors that make them vulnerable. Number 4, how traffickers operate. This was part I am on, which I showed y'all a few minutes ago. Here, module 4, how traffickers operate. So when I get past this, then all of a sudden I would go next and it'll take me to the next thing, which is usually somebody's story. And then it will be a quiz on module 4. Okay. Number 5, recognizing human trafficking, highlighting the importance of knowing the story behind the situation rather than just knowing the signs. Number 6, now what? Summarizing some of the ways that you can apply your knowledge and understanding to stop trafficking before it happens and to support survivors. So right here it says video modules, case studies, and quizzes. Here's survivors training, survivor stories here. So this really delves in deep. I hope that y'all check this link out, the side out. And then when they go like about our approach, human trafficking survivors are the true experts. For many years, the anti human trafficking field has focused on rescuing victims from their trafficking situation and asking, I mean, yeah, sorry. Let me make this bigger right here. And asking concerned citizens to say something if they see something. It's past time to recognize that we can't say something without knowing the true story from the survivors themselves. We have made it a mission at Polaris to put survivors first, as they are the true experts in the field. Survivors are more than just a story, they are a key to preventing human trafficking in the first place. That's why I'm trying to help out, share my stories. It's not for glory, it's not fame. I wish the things in my life didn't happen, but I've got to use it to try to help others, right? So let me get back and let's see what else going on here. Yes, it does too. It does. It can be neighbors. It can be anyone, which is sad and it's sadistic. You know that? See what she said right there. Chris also, her teacher training meant she saved my life in Japan 2 weeks ago when I first had a seizure. Thank God. I'm glad you're okay, Cash. Hotel manager ran out with a first aid kit. Wow. What kind of seizures you have, Cash? Tracking is not necessarily moving them. People need to realize you are right. It's not necessarily moving them because it could be in your own home. It could be anywhere. Your own family. It don't mean kidnapping either. It could be your own family, somebody you know. It could be a relative, a school teacher, anything. It could be somebody in the church. As we all know, a lot of that goes on for sure. Trafficking is selling services without actual consent. Well, they also, well, they could ask for consent, but it's just a minor. But the kid does not really have a say so. They're going like this and they're being forced into it. Like, you better do this or else. And you better not tell. It's like the kid really does not have any options out there. They are told and made to do it. Like, I didn't have no options. But they already had me groomed at uh, 2 years old. And the more I study on this and find out, all that neglect that they did when I was an infant, um, they were already putting me in that line for me to be groomed. That's part of the grooming process, where you know that nobody's going to be available for you. This is just a lot of the parts and different crazy stuff that goes on. Yes, thank God you're still here. I'm so grateful you are. Pippin is trafficking, yes. Did not let it run a trip. We took our nephew. Wow, we loved it there. We felt old. Yeah, that's easy to feel old when you got your little kids around and everything. But this is very important to note, and it's a very good points everyone is saying. Okay, and this is a little thing that I have copied to. 5 resources to help you better understand human trafficking. Human trafficking is an important issue for our community to address. In fact, human trafficking is becoming one of the most talked about issues in our neighborhoods today. All this awareness is great, but it can sometimes be difficult to find correct or updated information about the issues we care about, such as human trafficking. That is why we have compiled 5 resources that you can use to keep yourself up to date on the ins and outs of human trafficking. Okay, number one is this Polaris project, like we are going over today. It's a leading organization in the fight against human trafficking worldwide. They're the head of the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and the website is packed full of helpful information and research surrounding human trafficking. Click here to see the most recent post about the topology of human trafficking. Okay, the second one is ithastostop.com. This website is powered by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to help educate and bring awareness about human trafficking to Tennessee. The site also has survivor stories and lists updated efforts by Tennessee government. Slaveryfootprint.com. This website is where you can calculate just how much your life is touched by modern day slavery by answering a few lifestyle questions. I don't trust the WHO so much. You can read the most recent publication by WHO that speaks about health related concerns surrounding human trafficking and survivors. HT 101. It said, give us a call for an HT 101 training. We would love to meet face to face with you and the people you know to talk about human trafficking. Our training consists of general information about human trafficking, red flags, and how to respond. We always leave room for questions and often have at least 10 minutes of question time from our participants. You can sign up for an HG 101 session here. Contact Natalie at ccaht.org or call. You see how much it's grown up real quick? Sorry. At 865 236 1046, extension 5 for more information. Here is the psychological effects of human trafficking and depression, anxiety, and substance use, part 1. This is a 3-part series written by CCAT therapist Amy Cantfield. Instinctively, we understand that sex trafficking has negative effects on its victims. Yes? Hello? Hello? Hey, is everything okay? Well, tell him that I'm busy doing a live right now and I'll go when I'm done with this. I'm busy doing a live on my and tell him I'll go over there in a little while. Thank you. Part 1 is a 3-part series written by Amy Canfield. Instinctively, we understand that sex trafficking has negative effects on its victims. Our personal experience and empathy help us care for others who've been through traumatic events and give us a desire to support them. But what we may not know is exactly how human trafficking impacts its victims and what type of support they need. The experience of human trafficking can cause many short and long term adverse psychological effects. These effects may lead to maladaptive behaviors, mental health concerns, and substance abuse or use. Knowing what the specific effects are and how they impact the victim is an important part of understanding the complexity of this crime and providing appropriate support. How does it happen? The definition and act of sex trafficking have in them the recipe for creating and maintaining adverse psychological effects on victims. Trafficking is essentially taking control of another person and using them for one's own gain through force, fraud, or coercion. Traffickers often seek vulnerable individuals, such as displaced or homeless runaways, those with little social support or few resources, and individuals with psychological and emotional vulnerability. Traffickers believe they have the best chance at controlling and manipulating others by capitalizing on any existing vulnerabilities, while simultaneously creating dependence and a distorted sense of reality. The reality that the trafficker shapes through fraud, manipulation, and force leaves victims questioning their own ideas about what is true, who they can trust, and what their alternative options are. A lot of times we think it's our fault as well. We learn to blame ourselves. That's the way they want it. It's your fault. It's your fault. You did it. This, you're whatever. The experience of being trafficked may induce or exasperate mental health concerns and symptoms. While those with pre-existing mental health concerns or disabilities are often extremely vulnerable to the manipulation and exploitation of trafficking. Let me tell you, it's not your fault. It is the adults' fault. It is the people that are manipulating you. It's their fault. It is not your fault. Try to stay strong. There's a lot of people trying to help out. Possible psychological effects of human trafficking include depression, anxiety disorders, including panic disorder. Oh man, post traumatic stress disorder. All three so far were me. Substance use and disorders. Well, I went ahead and tried a couple of things and it didn't work for me. So I got sick when I tried, what's that, Dexatrim or something like that to lose weight. And I thought, well, and I ended up taking a double dose and didn't know it was speed. I got sick as a dog because I was always told I was fat and ugly. Okay, so this does tend to shame and guilt, alienation and isolation from social supports, suicidal ideations, thoughts of suicide, identity disturbance, confusion. A lot of people that spend even just regularly abused, they severely abused, they do dissociate a lot of times. That is common. The risk of developing a mental health disorder as a victim of trafficking may be influenced by multiple factors: past experience of trauma, abuse, duration of exploitation, violence, restrictions on movement while being trafficked, greater number of unmet needs, lower levels of support following trafficking. Many of us are familiar with most of the psychological effects on this list, as they are commonly experienced by individuals impacted by other forms of trauma or negative life events. However, understanding how these diagnoses and symptoms impact someone's ability to cope and survive while being trafficked or afterward may be helpful in working with and relating to victims of trafficking. Now, here's depression. When a person is depressed, they may experience symptoms that make it difficult to realistically evaluate and change their circumstances. They may have trouble thinking clearly and making decisions, properly caring for themselves, or feeling worthy or motivated to change. I can remember when I was in therapy, for an example, I really kept blaming myself. It took the therapist a long time for me to accept, to put the blame on my parents, to blame the perpetrators. Man, that was so difficult because all them years I had blamed myself. Man, that was so hard. No laughing joke. Y'all think that, that it's okay and stuff. No, it really wasn't. It was really hard and it's difficult. You really go through a funk that it's all your fault. Everything that's going on in your life, it's your fault. They had laid it on you that it's always your fault. You're the reason why you deserve this, whatever. It just goes on and on. But I started getting better and healing, especially when I stopped blaming myself and I put the blame on the people who did these actions to me. So that's a step in the right direction that y'all need to try to realize too. Stop blaming yourself for whatever abuse which happened to y'all. Put it into perspectives. You did not deserve this that happened to you. You were a child. Your parents or whoever did these actions to you, it's not your fault. They should think of other ways to rear a child instead of harming you or exploiting you or any of this other stuff that's going on, like this sexual trafficking. Anxiety. When a person has an anxiety disorder, they may experience general or specific fears and worries. The person may become preoccupied with anxious thoughts, making it difficult to function normally. As they attempt to navigate through their fears and worries, they may have trouble making decisions and concentrating, changing their routines, or trusting new people and situations. Man, when that anxiety cropped up, I got to give y'all the examples as I'm going through here. But I really, when the memories started coming, and the nightmares and the depression and anxiety, I was really afraid to step out of my own house. I was afraid that somebody was waiting outside to attack me. Okay, I would sometimes I wouldn't even make it halfway across the yard and everything. I had to run back in, and I get sick as a dog. It was really playing on me, playing on my mind. And then I did end up eventually being able to go a couple places, but then a lot of times I had to turn back around and come back home. Agoraphobia, when you go grocery shopping, see these people look at you, it's like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to faint, having a panic attack. These people watching, it's like you don't know who you can trust or anything, and you're out there in public and you're scared, you're nervous because some of these perpetrators are in the same vicinity of when you were trafficked. PTSD. When a person suffers from PTSD, they may avoid people, places, and things. In an attempt to avoid any triggers, reminders of the traumatic events. They may experience intrusive thoughts, images, and flashbacks, which impact their ability to cope in the present. They may also experience mood changes and trouble concentrating, which that's another, anxiety and PTSD, I think, basically goes line in line with each other. And with the thing about, y'all know that my dad used to shoot at me with a shotgun. So now I have trouble going around fireworks because it reminds me of guns going off. Okay, that's just a normal type of thing that happens. I try to get over it, but it's just something I guess I'm going to still have to worry about. When someone is trying to help a victim of human trafficking, it may be frustrating because it might appear that the person is not receptive to help or committed to making any changes. It is important to be aware of the symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PTSD and how they may impact a person's ability to cope, think, plan, and commit. In addition, traffickers use these symptoms to maintain control over their victims, taking advantage of the fact that victims may be struggling to evaluate reality and make informed decisions. Awareness of symptoms, patience and understanding, and referrals to appropriate professional services are essential. And of course, then there's substance use disorders. When a person uses substances to self medicate or is addicted to one or more substances, they may spend a large amount of time obtaining, using, and recovering from the substance. I got so mad because I would go to alcohol thinking that I could drink to forget, right? I was so mad because I it didn't work for me. I seen all these other people when they're laughing and joking and all that, and so they can forget. They pass out, they don't remember what they're doing and nothing. But me, whenever I drunk, I still remembered everything that was going on, and it was annoying to me. I wanted to drink so much to forget, but it did not help me. I remember being at the bar and then falling to the left, falling to the right, being tipsy and all that. Then I was more embarrassed about my behavior and people seeing me being tipsy and this kind of thing. Then I said, "Well, that's not working for me. I can't drink to forget. It's not helping, no matter what." So I tried to self medicate, but that did not work for me, unfortunately. In addition, traffickers use substances to control victims, either by introducing them to substances or by controlling access to substances, allowing them to control, manipulate, and exploit the victim. Now, I'm telling some secrets I don't normally tell, okay? Hello, CRG. Good to see you. It's good that you're keeping an eye on your nephews right there, Cash. I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of you not trying to be a bystander, also. Thanks so much for that. So like depression, anxiety, and PTSD, the person may seem unreceptive to help and uncommitted to changes due to the grasp that the addiction has on the person. Most people need professional treatment for their addiction, so it's imperative victims with substance use issues as are linked to services that can provide appropriate help for addiction. And y'all, please don't give up on somebody when they're constantly blaming themselves or doing this other things. Look how many years it took them to get to constantly blaming themselves, okay? Speaking from personal experience, okay? It was hard for me after so many years of taking all that blame. It was so hard to actually say, well, it wasn't my fault. It was really the responsibility of my parents. It was the person that did that. I know it sounds like it crazy. I know it sounds hard to believe. It sounds like a no-brainer that you shouldn't be blaming yourself, but when you're in that kind of atmosphere and that's what you are taught, it's like it is ingrained deep within you and it is hard to get over. So please do not give up on the people that you are trying to help. Just give them time, and in time, when the time's right, when maybe they get around somebody that's been through similar or something like that, and maybe that's going to help them as well. There are four mental health diagnoses, and the corresponding symptoms may be typical reactions to stress and trauma. The symptoms associated with these conditions can be serious, persistent, and challenging to manage and live with. It is crucial that individuals with these symptoms are provided with supportive resources and services to help educate about and address their symptoms and learn how to cope and manage them so they may lead happy, healthy lives. In the next segment, it says we will discuss four more psychological effects of human trafficking. Okay, so I do have two more parts here. And I want y'all to say, do not lose hope, okay? Do not lose hope in the individual. You may be their only lifeline. I guess it did not show y'all the manuscript, did it? For some reason, it did not show y'all, and I was sharing it. And I'm sorry that it did not show that, okay? Yeah, they get the benefit because, the thing is, I guess that's why they blame you so that you're also not going to tell on them, right? The perpetrators are being safe because, like with a stepmom, like it's even in my book about her holding me down while her son raped me, and then later on, what she had done about me having him at home. He never had a birth certificate or anything because I had him at home. But to see the knife going over up in the air over my baby that she had on the counter, I mean, that's devastating, okay? You blamed yourself so long. Like, why can't, when I did remember it in therapy, why could I not got up out of the floor and protected my child? Who am I kidding? I was still a teen. Who am I kidding? There's two other teenagers that she's got help that would help fight against me, right? There's two other people. How would I normally get up? Plus, my body was so stressed because it just had a baby, right? How would I really think that I would have the energy to get up off that floor, being so weak like I was, and to get up and fight an evil person who's been vindictive and all that? And y'all, I am so glad that I don't look through the dark shades that I used to look through. I used to think that why continue trying to get better when the future is the same dark, bleak? There's no positive looking in the future, okay? There was just darkness, more cruelty, more pain. Because here I was being abused by my husband as well. So it was kind of hard dealing with the here and now. It was hard when the police said my husband could beat me all he liked, and so they didn't help. The church said it's best to let my husband kill me. It's my only way to heaven. So that didn't help. So really, you're feeling like you're in it all alone. All these people were trying to cover up for the truth and stopping trying to get help. Okay, there are too many out there that wants to shut up people that knows these secrets because basically a lot of them are involved today or were involved when they were alive. So it's best that we do get out and that we do talk about this. We do. I know it's hard to listen to. Some people told me I talk about it too much. But isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that we're supposed to get the word out to try to help? My experience might be different than somebody else's. So I can only talk about my experiences and getting the experiences that I'm able to see online. And I'm sorry that the PDF did not show for y'all. I thought for sure that when I was reading that it was going along with y'all too. So I want to thank y'all so much. I appreciate every one of y'all. And I hope that y'all come back in again soon. I'm going to have another live tomorrow because this is April wellness. Yeah, it does not need to be kept in the shadows. You are right. And it's so sad that when people try to get it out, they just want to shut you up. I want to tell y'all a little secret, okay? That y'all might not know. And I think I did tell a couple people before, okay? When I went to, after I had my kids, and I went ahead and let my evil stepmom live with us with her daughter because she was homeless. I thought that's a Christian thing to do. I had a lot of block. I did not remember about the baby incidents. I remember about her abusing me, but I did not remember about the essay and all that kind of stuff. It's all, but it's kind of weird when she tried to take the food out of my son's mouth when they were there at the kitchen table eating, and told me to give that to my her daughter kids. And I said, well, you're right there cooking. Let her kids eat what you're cooking. My kids already eaten this, and my husband's the one that bought all the food what everybody is eating. Okay. And she got mad at me and she said, I said, then you need to leave. And I really kicked her out and I kicked them all out. They didn't have a car. Uh, that was my stepsister. She had a boyfriend and she didn't make to go to work. She had 3 kids. Um, and I kicked her out. And I remember when my stepmom said, like, what happened to you? Uh, what I did years ago, which I didn't remember what exactly happened. I just knew that it was bad because what she had said is, this is what's going to happen to your oldest child. And I thought, oh no, oh no. So my youngest still was not going to school. My oldest rode the school bus. He was dropped off at my mother-in-law's house, okay, at her driveway, then had to walk across probably about 2 or 3 acres to get to the house where we're at. Something just made me go ahead and wait on the school bus, at the barn lot. Okay, I see this white van pull up behind the school bus. A passenger got out of the van. My son got off the school bus. The guy started going towards my son, and I started running to my son. Run, 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 shouting, run, run, run. So he started running to me and everything. He got away. The school bus driver went ahead and started pulling up. Okay, she didn't know what was happening. The very next day, that same van pulled up behind the school bus, went ahead. The passenger got out of the passenger seat, opened up the back of the van. The bus driver did not pull up. She did not pull up. She blocked him. Matter of fact, she had another vehicle that was coming up fixing to trap them, right? So they were trying to kidnap my first child with my marriage after what they done prior. Had I not been there, that son might be dead today as well because of this. Okay? So yes, I lived in hell because of these people, okay? And I will not remain silent. And people, anybody else wants to say she was a good person, I do not call this a good person, okay? So she still tried to bother my son. I knew that it was going to be bad. I didn't know what it really was, and I just went ahead and waited right there. And I could not believe it that they were going to kidnap my son and going to do something with him. So that's something I probably haven't told y'all before, but I needed to get out there too. That they still try to do something to my kids after my marriage. Okay, they still tried. I want to say thank you and God bless. and I will continue to fight for the people. Okay, I will continue to fight and speak up. Thank y'all all, and God bless each and every one of y'all. And I hope Facebook isn't blocking my video again. Thank you so much, Cash. I really do appreciate. Thank you, CRJ, and everybody that's here. I think there's 7 people in here. Please hit the thumbs up. And on my profile here is a link to my book that's on my page. So if y'all want to get Shattered Innocence Revised, the link is there too. Stay safe too. Thank you so much. God bless you.